Welcome to another episode of Jodie's Journey. I'm going to close the camera so that I know that I'm not going to be looking at myself in the camera. I'm just looking into that because it's all getting very technical here. I now have a new vlog camera and I have no idea to use the fucking thing, so I can only apologise in advance if you can't see me the whole time or hear me. It has a microphone thing. So I am sat in my pyjamas in the garden. I'm kind of whispering because I'm aware it's 10 past 8 in the morning and everybody's probably asleep and windows are open because it is the summer. Today's podcast is actually talking to you about my tummy tuck. My tummy tuck has been quite a journey on its own, and I wasn't ready to talk about that yet because at the beginning I actually really struggled, and I was so buzzing to have it happen and so excited for the results. I didn't actually research enough what it was going to be like, how the recovery was going to be, and ultimately when things go wrong. Now, I did have things go wrong, but they were minor, they weren't horrific, and they were manageable. However, depending on the type of person you are would depend how you would deal with these situations. So when I first woke up, I was in quite a lot of discomfort. Everything felt very tight and quite sore, which is going to happen. At the end of the day, my stomach was all... I will do some... If you're an audio listener, I urge you to go and look on my YouTube, because on my YouTube there will be images that I'm going to be referring to and chucking in so that you can see exactly what I'm talking about. I have got lots of images, and it is a trigger warning for this episode if you are upset by, like, well, it's cosmetic surgery, guys, so you're going to see skin, blood, tape, stitches, wounds, all sorts of things that have gone a little bit awry for me whilst having my tummy tuck. I got to the hospital. Again, I would 100% go back to this hospital and have my care there. There's one thing that I was dubious about before I got there, and I questioned with them, which was the drainage afterwards and how long you should have the drainage in before it's removed. And they said, I can't remember how many percent they said now. I think I've got it written down that there is a problem and you can get something called a seroma. So I knew a seroma was potentially going to be possible, and I knew that drainage was highly important. And I knew that the hospital were aware of this, and they said that however many percent it happens to, and I said to Callum, you can bet your bottom dollar that's going to be me. And guess what? It fucking was. Now, on top of the seroma, which I will tell you how I dealt with it shortly, I had a problem with my stitches. Again, none of these things are a direct result of the company that I used, the country that I went to, the surgeon, or anything like that. It is just about your body, how it reacts. I genuinely believe it's to do with the fact that I've got a tattoo that side, and that is why I had a problem with the healing. So let me talk to you about the seroma. So I had been home a few days. I'd travelled home. I stayed in Prague for I had my surgery done with Care in Prague. Absolutely phenomenal place. All the staff were amazing. Everyone was extremely friendly and polite. Everybody spoke amazing English to be able to talk to me properly. There was a few nurses that didn't, but that was fine because other nurses helped and etc. So I didn't have any issues there, and 100% I would go back to them. I'm obviously researching now into where to go for having my third boob surgery, and they are top of my list at the moment because they were just so fantastic, regardless of the problems that I've had since being in England and back home. So you're meant to keep the tape on for like 2 weeks. I wasn't allowed to shower or bath. You weren't allowed to shower for 10 days, but I wasn't allowed to bath for like 6 weeks. So it was a whole like wash in the sink jobby for the first 10 days, which was really awful because I'm a really like need a shower person. Baths are my life as well. Literally, they are like my golden time of like, oh, I need to chill out for 5, so I'm having a bath. Anyway, I couldn't have that, so that was quite frustrating. Now, the tape stays on for 2 weeks. So he said after you have your first shower, you need to spray it with the antiseptic spray. It's like well, antiseptic spray, and then dry with a hairdryer along your stitches, and then like leave it alone, don't be touching it. Unfortunately, the tape started to peel away and it was rubbing, and underneath my corset that I had to wear, which was to keep all the fluid and help with, it was a compression garment to help with swelling, etc. It was rubbing, and I had a really big sore, and it was turning into a massive blister right by my tattoo. So I had to remove the tape because it was literally rolling around and rubbing. So I removed that and we replaced it with a different tape. Unfortunately, underneath that tape, because of the fact that it had been rubbing and I'd got these massive blisters, the blisters had burst and were refilling. And every time they burst, this water was saturating all of my stitch line. So as you can imagine, I've got dissolvable stitches. And the whole reason you can't have a bath is because you can't be underwater saturating your stitches, because ultimately they're going to dissolve too quickly. Obviously they're not going to dissolve like that in the bath, but over time they're breaking down too quickly. I also believe, because of my tattoo, and this sounds very bad, but since losing the weight I can actually see my tattoo better, which sounds awful. And I always thought, you know how like with this tattoo I've got like the water splash marks, right? I always thought that my tattoo had like almost like a splash mark around it, around the leaf at the bottom. It doesn't. I have since learned that that is a blowout of a tattoo, where they've pressed too hard and they've inputted too much ink and they've done it too hard and they've blown out the tattoo. So it looks like bruising, but it's not bruising, it's my tattoo, and they've just gone too deep with the ink. Now, taking that into consideration, and where my scar line and the stitches is straight through the middle of a tattoo, it wasn't healing. That, added with the fact that I'd got these blisters that were on top of that site, meant that it was breaking up too quickly, and I ended up with holes, and I had holes all down this side, and I was freaking out. So I got some steri strips. I got some advice from the company that I went with. They were very good, actually, to be fair, and obviously they welcomed me back every time to go back there, and they would help and advise me. However, you've got to understand I went abroad, so for me to go and get a flight, for me to arrange childcare, it's not as easy as just going right. So you do have to think that when you have a surgery of what can happen, because what I didn't want to do was go to my GP. That's what they advised me to do initially. They were like, you know, go to a GP, they'll be able to help you. My problem with that is I understand that the NHS is under pressure. My son has been waiting near on 6 months now for a hearing test. There is no way I was going to be one of those people that added extra pressure to the NHS when they're obviously already overloaded. I also didn't want to be one of those people that went running to the NHS and everyone giving me a load of shit about how surgery abroad's gone wrong and yada yada yada, because it wasn't their fault, and I didn't feel like that was a fair representation of the company that I used, and I felt very in an awkward position, especially with the platform that I have, people looking to me, wanting to know about my surgery. I didn't want to be a negative impact on anybody, which I don't know how you take that. Anyway, I got some steri strips. I like some, you know, like the holding together like stitches. I was using the antiseptic spray and like an antiseptic like cream, and I was just making sure that I was keeping it clean and dry. I didn't have the showers that I could have then had at that point. I was washing my hair and stuff, but I wasn't having full body showers because I was so scared of getting it wet and ruining it. It has eventually healed, and it is healed. My scar is bigger than the other side, but it is healed. It has taken some time, but it took a lot of my care and attention to get it to that point, and it was probably 2 to 3 weeks behind the rest of the scar line, which just goes to show how difficult it's taken for it to heal. So that was that. It was quite worrying at points, and if it had got worse and wasn't starting to improve, then I probably would have had to have gone either back to Prague or to a nurse or something here in the UK, which is what I didn't want to do. So the other problem that I had, which is more of, I don't want to say a serious problem, but I think more of a, oh my God, I need to deal with that problem, is a seroma. Now, I briefly spoke at the beginning of this about seromas. They are like water. It's like fluid buildup in your stomach. And I'm doing that because when I show the video, if I can manage to show it, it looks like a wave. When I touch one side of my tummy, the water just like waves across. And unfortunately, I ended up with that because I think maybe my drains were taken out a bit too early. I think that because you're done abroad and they want you to be in and out quickly, I think that maybe the drainage needs to be a little bit longer than it is. Now, I did research going back to Prague to get them to drain it, but what they said was if you come and drain it, you may find in a week or two it fills back up because you obviously have an issue, and you're going to continue to get seromas until like a few weeks down the line. So I was like, brilliant, so what am I going to do? Go and pay 90 quid for a return flight, go for the day, get it drained, come back again, and then in a week or so I'm going to have to do that all over again. I researched private companies in the UK to go to. A lot of them wouldn't touch me because I was from abroad, which I found quite annoying considering they were private companies. So this is something you are going to have to think about when you have something done abroad. And then I stumbled across somebody who, now, can I just give you a tiny bit of background before I just sound like I've gone off on a tangent and stabbed myself with needles? I have a history with dog rescue and dog rehoming. With my time in Cyprus, I spent a lot of time, one of my friends is a vet. She taught me how to take blood from dogs, from their necks and from their paws. I have like helped in surgeries, so I do have a base knowledge there, right, of holding a needle, handling a needle. That's not saying I'm qualified, obviously, but I'm just giving you a background as to why my brain went to this point. And I am a qualified veterinary nurse. Again, that does not give me carte blanche to be like, oh, I can do that. But it was me, and it was an educated decision about myself and my body, right? So I am not encouraging or telling anybody to do this, which is why I didn't talk about it at the time and why I'm talking about it now. I found somebody else who had a seroma, didn't want to go back to the other country, didn't want to put on the NHS, literally sounded like me. And I researched the correct size needles for the seroma. I researched everything that I needed to, and I ordered it all myself. I then proceeded to stand in my shower with Callum with me and stab myself with a needle into my seroma, and withdrew over 100 millilitres, I want to say, of fluid from my seroma. It completely drained it all out, and it was brilliant. Within 6 days, like they said in Prague, it was back. Now, I didn't film any of the filming or doing it because I really, really didn't want to deal with the backlash of me doing it, and I didn't really speak about it at the time, again, because I didn't want to deal with people criticising. I didn't want to deal with it, and unfortunately it was my body, my decision, and if something went wrong, then so be it. It hasn't. I did have to continually syringe my stomach for quite some time. No, it didn't hurt. Because of how close you do it to the scar line and where the seroma was on my stomach, you're so numb there from after surgery. Like, even now, my tummy feels numb. You know, like when you get pins and needles and you start to get the feeling back in your foot, but it still feels numb. That's how it feels all the way across my scar line. Anybody who's had a C-section, I think, would be able to relate to me. Not that I've had one, but that's what C-section people, when I've spoken to them, have said that it feels like. So I didn't feel anything. It wasn't painful. the first time I did it, because I was bending down like this for such a long time, I did get really dizzy and I did nearly pass out. And Callum was stressing and he was like, this is ridiculous, we need to go to the hospital. And I was adamant I wasn't going. And I didn't go. Seromas can't be left. They can put pressure on the scar line of where your stitches are healing, and they can split open. They can cause all sorts of massive complications, like major complications. It could not be left. That is why I did not leave it, and I have had no issue. It did have to be done several times over the next few weeks, but I haven't done it now for probably about a month, probably about 4 weeks, I would think. I'm completely healed. The scarring is starting to fade. I am now, probably 13 weeks, maybe 14 weeks post-surgery, and I'm really happy with my results. At the beginning, I wasn't happy with my results. At the beginning, I was worried. I was regretting things and thinking I should have just stuck to my mum down. But now I'm past it all. Now I'm recovered. I'm genuinely glad I've done it. And if this is something you want to do, just make sure you research it thoroughly and make sure you are prepared for the things that, if you're in the percent of things going wrong, the old bunny ears of like percentages, what would I do differently? What would I do differently? I did ask at the beginning to the company if I could stay longer with the drains in, and they said I didn't need to. I think, knowing what I know now, I probably would have enforced that with them and said I'm staying in the hospital longer, even if that means I've got to pay for more days, because I think the extra draining would have helped, and also they would have potentially started to see a problem where my stitches weren't holding and maybe done something different there. Again, this is an afterthought, and I'm not stressed and I'm not worried and I'm not upset, because it did all work out okay because I was sensible and I didn't just leave anything. I also sent pictures to a couple of medical friends as well to ask them to have a look at things, to assess the damage, so to speak. I'm quite lucky. In some things in life, it is about who you know sometimes. Not that anybody helped me or treated me, I did it myself. It was just a case of having that like extra eyes on it to have a look and assess what I was seeing. So my tummy tuck was worth doing. Definitely would do it again. I would just be more knowledgeable about the drainage, because if you're not drained properly, that's when you have a problem. So yeah, that's probably about it. It's a short and sweet one today. I'm quite pleased with how I look now. Just my boobies to sort out. That's the only thing I want to do now, is my boobies, because they are not what I wanted. Anybody who knows my story about that, I think I probably should do a boob story, to be honest. Anybody interested in that? Comment below if there's anything you else want me to talk about, or any questions, and I will try and answer them. And yeah, once again, thank you for coming along for Jodie's Journey. This is Jodie's Journey signing out.